we're going to use a JavaScript and a for loop that's going to iterate through each one of these H1 tags and find its color style and spit it out in an alert box. So let me run it real quick. And you say this page says RGB 0, 0, 255. It's referring to this first one that has a blue color. RGB value means there's 0 for red, 0 for green, and 255 for blue. Click OK, and then it's going to go, it's going to loop, and then it's going to iterate to the next one. Okay. This page says RGB 255, 0, 0. So that means there's 255 for red, 0 for green, and 0 for blue. Now let's go to the green. RGB has 0 for red, 128 for green, 0 for blue. Click OK, and now let's go to purple. RGB is 128 for red, 0 for green, and 128 for blue. So 128 red and 128 blue is giving us purple. And you can remember from elementary school, if you mixed red and blue, you got purple. Okay, let's go over the code. HTML head. I had a link, an external style sheet, and here is how I linked to it. And I also had a style in these style tags in the head as well, because the book said that this particular code would work even if your styles for your elements belonged in an external sheet, even if they were in style tags in the head, or even if, and this is how they actually showed the code, you had the inline style, which is in line with the opening H1 tag itself. Well, when I attempted it with an external sheet and the style tags up here in the head, it didn't work. I don't know why it didn't work, but since it didn't work, I left these as placeholders, because if I can figure out what I did wrong, and then I'll come back to it and do a video that shows that the code actually does work, even if you're using an external style sheet or the styles up here. In the meantime, the code is working because we have inline styles right here in each one of the H1 header tags, opening header tags. Anyway, let's get to the script that does work based on what we've got going on. We've got a function, and I named it go. And then the next line says var bongos equals document.getElements by tag name h1. And I just gave it a weird name that means absolutely nothing. So what this is doing here, we grab all of the elements by their tag name, which is h1, and we put them in a variable called bongos. So you can call it anything you want. So everywhere that this page has an h1 tag, it's going to stick it into bongos. And it's going to count them down here in this loop, and I'll show you. And here, this is just a note, we use a for loop that will loop through all of the H1s and bongos and do something with them. So we can do different things, but right now all we're doing is pulling out what the the color style is. Here's the beginning of the for loop. For var I equals 0, as long as I is less than bongos length, bongos.length, I plus plus. I is the counter we're creating, so I basically means increment, and it's starting off at 0. So as long as 0 is less than bongos length, then this will proceed. Well, what is bongos length? Well, again, we are taking document.getElements by tag name h1, so we're taking the h1s and we're putting them in bongos. How many h1s do you see here? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So as long as 0 is less than 4, then the loop will run. Well, I is less than 4, so the loop will run. And what is the loop going to do? The loop, I can read the note first. So in the first loop, ID heading 0 is grabbed. In the second loop, ID equals heading 1 is grabbed. In the third loop, ID heading 2 is grabbed. In the fourth loop, ID heading 3 is grabbed. Each time an H1 is grabbed, it is put into the variable called heading zapper. Then the variable heading zapper is used and further code is shown. So here in line 20, I create another strange named variable so that it just kind of pops out. Doesn't mean anything. Var heading zapper equals document.getElement by ID. So first, with this line, document get elements by tag name h1, we're just grabbing everything that has an h1 and putting it in here, so the length was 4. Here we are using document.getElementById, by ID, and here we have in double quotes heading plus I, which means the index number, or the index value, so basically the first loop is going to say document.getElementById, by ID heading 0, which happens to be the ID that I gave this H1 with a blue background. It has an ID equals heading 0. So heading 0 is going to go into this variable called heading zapper. Now we've got a couple of conditions. One condition applies to Internet Explorer, the other condition applies to all the other browsers. So we have if this, then do this, and then if you're using a different browser, then else if this, then do this. So that's basically the meaning of the if-else. It's about browser compatibility. But regardless of what browser and which syntax we're going to use, the output's going to be an alert box, and it's going to spit out whatever the value of current style is. So that's the gist of this. So let me go on ahead and read line by line. If type of heading zapper.currentStyle does not equal undefined, so I think that's for Internet Explorer, then var current style equals heading zapper.currentStyle.color. So it's taking whatever the value of heading zapper is, which in the first iteration of the loop, it's going to be heading 0. So whatever the current style color of the H1 tag that has heading 0, that value is going to go into current style. Well, I know that heading 0 has a style color is blue, so blue is going to go into this. Blue is going to go into current style. This else if, again, this is pertaining to another browser, like maybe Chrome or Firefox. So else if type of window.getComputedStyle does not equal undefined, then var current style equals document.defaultView.getComputedStyle, parentheses heading zapper, comma null.getPropertyValue and color. So this is a lot longer of a syntax to do the same thing, but again, this is about browser compatibility. So alert current style. Go down, there's the end of the script, there's the end of the head, there's title, which just says test up here, and this script type equals text / JavaScript, source equals ehandler.js, and a script. This is pointing to an external JavaScript that has the name of ehandler.js, and I'm not going to go over that because I did it in a previous video, but if you do not have this external JavaScript, this code won't work. This code is dependent on having this external JavaScript. Okay, so here's the body, and here's a note that talks about these 4 H1 tags. Here are 4 H1 tags that will be grabbed one at a time in the for loop iterations. In the first loop, ID equals heading 0 is grabbed. So you see ID heading 0 is grabbed, and color blue is going to be the value for that. In the second loop, ID heading 1 is grabbed, and ID heading 1 happens to have the color of red. In the third loop, ID heading 2, it's looking for that, and it's going to grab the color green from that one. And in the fourth loop, it's going to be looking for the ID of heading 3, and it's going to grab the color purple and give the output for color purple. So again, H1 style equals font family Arial color blue, ID heading 0. This H1 tag has a style end H1. That creates this thing right here. And H1 style font family Arial color red, ID heading 1. This H1 tag has a style end H1. That's creating this one. Next, H1 style font family Arial color green, ID heading 2. This H1 tag has a style end H1 is creating this guy. And finally, H1 style font family Arial color purple, ID heading equals 3. This H1 tag has a style, and H1 is creating that one. Okay. And underneath all those header tags, we have a button. And this is the button we'll call the go function. And this is how you make that button. Input type equals button, ID equals go button, value equals run function. We're almost done. Okay, this adds the go function to the go button's click event using the external ehandler.js file. So again, if you don't have the ehandler.js external JavaScript file, this code won't work because this JavaScript right here is being used in conjunction with that external script in order to create this functionality of the button. It's actually allowing the click event to be attached to a function. Now, until I got to this portion in this book, I always just gave a button an onClick event, and the onClick event was set equal to whatever the name of the function was. But I'm sure that there's going to be some value of me learning about this external ehandler external JavaScript file. I don't really know what it is yet, but I'm going to learn it anyway. So here's our final script in the end of at the end of the body. It's got two statements. var go button equals document.getElementById go button. So here we are, get element by ID. So now we're snagging this button, and then we're using ehandler.add, and in parentheses go button. So we're still referring to this go button. We want to utilize a click event for it, and we want to attach a function to the click event. And what function do we want to attach? We want to attach the go function that we created in the head. And that's it. End of body, end of HTML.